Right, okay, guys, welcome to the second episode of Compilation Teardown. Now, this is where I take a look at a compilation released on one of the 8 or 16-bit machines back in the day. The compilations were they were a very popular thing for two reasons. One, it was giving the customer some great deals. They were getting some usually decent games for about £9.99. And secondly, for the actual publisher, they were basically getting money again for games that they'd previously already received money for. So yeah, there was loads of these compilations, and the one I'm going to take a look at in this video is Elite, or more specifically, Best of Elite Volume 1. Now you can see here this is the advert for the ZX Spectrum 48 and 128 cassette. Featured was Bomb Jack, Frank Bruno's Boxing, Commando, and Airwolf. Now unfortunately I couldn't actually find an advert for the C64 one, but I'm reliably informed it had exactly the same games. So anyway, let's take a look at each version and see what, or basically see how they stack up. Right, kicking things off is Bomb Jack on the Commodore 64. Now, to some of my more regular viewers, you may know this as the theme tune to Arcade Perfect, My Arse. Arcade Perfect, My Arse. Sorry, couldn't resist it. Anyway, yep, Bomb Jack on the C64. Now, the pluses, I think the music in this version is absolutely fantastic. I think the music is really good. It fits the game perfectly. Now, I did buy this back in the day, and you know what? I always thought that it was alright. But having read reviews over the sort of prevailing 30 odd years, or 40 years actually, it's actually a version that a lot of people don't like. Now I know Zap didn't like it. They basically said that Bomb Jack was way too fat and was too big for the screen. Now, playing it now, I can see where they're coming from. The screen was portrait, whereas this is kind of playing it sort of long ways. It's basically the wrong sort of aspect ratio. It should be a tall, skinny screen. Now, another thing which I don't like about it, and I never really noticed it that much, you'll notice the bombs have got big square bits around them. Not so much in this screen. Once you get to the next screen, you'll hopefully see it. That's indeed, of course, I actually get to the next screen. I mean, the backgrounds I think look great. You know, I think that Sphinx looks excellent. Let's give it another go. Yeah, look at the bombs on the left-hand side. Why have they got blue backgrounds? It just screams unfinished. You know, was that not noticed? Was this game rushed? I don't know. It certainly looks like it. That said, it actually plays alright. It does play alright, and like I said, I've got a sort of fondness for this version. It was the one that I played back in the day. I think a big part of the game for me though is the music. Like I said, the music is really good. Is it Mark Cooksey, I think it is, did the music. Now, I'd never actually seen the arcade version of this, so you know, this was the very first time I actually got to see Bomb Jack. There we go, he gets to do his little dance. Ba-dum-ba-dum-bum! Yeah, this looks horrible. These bombs, why have they got a blue background? That's just sloppy programming. So anyway, that is the C64 version of Bomb Jack. Let's take a look at the Spectrum one. Now, right away, yep, okay, it's monochrome. Well, it's got some yellow graphics as well. It's largely monochrome, but the sprites are detailed. They're obviously a lot smaller, and it does feel more like the arcade version. It also plays really, really well. Now, I can remember my mate Grant having this, and I just thought, compared to my musical extravaganza version on the C64, this was rubbish, but I have to say, looking at it now, this is a lot better. It just, the graphics are lovely and detailed. There's none of this horrible colour clash, blocky graphics in the C64. I mean, really, what were all you thinking about? And the sound's not bad, you know, considering this is the 48 key one we're playing with a little beeper. It's actually, the sound is really, really good. And you can see what they've done there is, well, I was going to say they've tried to make it the screen. This screen doesn't really look that much different from the C64 one, aspect ratio wise, but I think because they've got the graphics, they've made the graphics smaller, it just feels a lot more like the arcade one. You pick up that little P, the baddies turn into little sort of smiley faces, and you can pick them up for bonus points. They do reappear though, as you've probably noticed. And I would actually say that this one actually plays better than the C64 one as well. Hammer that fire button, allows you to kind of float in midair. So yeah, excellent. Right, number 2, Frank Bruno's Boxing, and this is on the C64. Now I did buy this game, and I just found it extremely frustrating. I really couldn't kind of get to grips with it. Now, this is actually the demo. I couldn't actually, for some weird reason, when I was trying to play it in the C64, every time I pressed the fire button to start the game, it would just reset. So this is actually the demo. I'm not actually playing this. You'll see a bit of glitching going on. You'll see just above the guy's knees there's some glitching. One thing that I'm absolutely flabbergasted to look at now, this is almost identical to Super Punch-Out on the SNES. Now this came out before, so this Elite had basically completely ripped off Punch-Out, the Nintendo Punch-Out game. Obviously using the Frank Bruno sort of sponsorship thing. One thing I did like about the C64 one was the sound. The music was good, the sound was good, and actually the graphics I think look pretty good. And like the Spectrum version, it was a tape loader, so you had to load each opponent. So anyway, that's the C64 version. Let's take a look at the Spectrum one. Now, right away, obviously, it's got less colour. The little portrait pictures at the top do look better than the C64 one. Though I have to say, the bad guy at the bottom does look quite pixely, which is quite surprising. But it doesn't seem to have that kind of horrible glitching that goes on in the C64 one. Now, there weren't that many moves in this particular game, but it was all about getting to fight kind of big cartoon characters. Like I said, I never actually realised until actually making this video, I didn't realise just how similar this game is to Super Punch-Out. But back then, it didn't seem to matter. People plagiarise games all the time. That's me knocked out. Come on, Big Frank, let him have it. My mate loved this. He had the Spectrum. He loved this. I wasn't a massive fan of it. You know, I wasn't a massive fan of the game at all. If I wanted my boxing fix, it was always Barry McGuigan's boxing. That was always the one I used. And we turn to have it. And he's down. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's Frank Bruno's boxing. That's on the Spectrum. Right, and now on to one of probably one of the most difficult C64 games you're ever likely to play. This is Airwolf. Now this game could have been a great game. I mean, you could tell it was heavily influenced by Fort Apocalypse, which is one of my favourite C64 games. Fantastic game. Obviously using the license of Airwolf. What makes this game so difficult is the fact that you've basically got to keep the joystick held up. But that's not technically true. You've got to keep it held up and then let it go, hold it up, let it go. You've got to try and not fall down, and it's just so difficult. Trying to just go in a straight line is almost nigh impossible. Now I can actually say I'm doing better here than I did probably any time I actually had the game. I don't think I ever bought the game. I think I got it in the compilation. I mean, it's got decent music. The graphics I think are really good. Though one thing that does annoy me is why is the play area only taking up half the screen? The bottom half, you've got your bonus, you've got your score, you've got your high score, and then you've got what looks like a ZX Spectrum computer, which serves absolutely no purpose whatsoever. So yeah, I don't really understand why they couldn't have gone full screen. But with the right tweaking, this game could have been awesome. It really could have. Because this is, the graphics are nice, the sound's nice. It's just the ridiculous, difficulty. I'm determined to get through here. Right, anyway, listen, that's enough of that. That is Airwolf, and that's on the Commodore 64. Let's take a look at the Spectrum one. Right away, you've probably noticed it looks nothing like the C64 one. It doesn't look anything like it, and it certainly plays nothing like it. It is very colourful for a Spectrum, I have to say. Whoops, a daisy, that was close. But it feels a bit easier. Back up here, I think. Avoiding these. Oh, let's go through here. Now although this is keys only, I did manage to get the Joy 2 key to work, so I'm actually using the joystick here, so I am technically cheating. It always interests me the fact that the same company would bring out the same game for two different platforms, but they would both be completely different. I'm assuming they must have just said to the programmers, right, here you go, we've got the license for Airwolf, go and make a game with a helicopter in it. So yeah, I think this definitely does feel more playable. It's certainly not as ridiculously impossible as the C64 one. And again, the graphics are actually quite nice. There you go. Right, now if this is not an iconic SID tune, I don't know what is. This is Commando. Now, I played this so much back in the day, I thought this was fantastic conversion. I didn't realise that it only had, I think, 3 of the 8 levels. I'd never seen, let alone played the arcade version. I just thought this was a fantastic version, you know, and it's just made even better with the music. Looking at it now, yeah, it does glitch. You see there at the bottom, the screen does glitch quite a bit. And as we probably know, there was a group of clever programmers took the original and then they added the remaining 5. Did that orange guy just change colour? I think he did actually. See what I mean about it being bug ridden? Yeah, they took this game, they added the remaining 5 levels, they tidied up the graphics, they fixed the glitching. Yeah, they just made it better. They made it better. But obviously we're looking at the original version. But even now, in all its kind of glitching glory, I still think it's a fun game to play. They've also added the little, not so much cutscenes, they've got little animations of the soldier drinking out of, you know, his water and that kind of stuff. They've added these in as well. Now, I don't know how long Chris Butler had to convert this. I'm assuming he was probably given quite a sort of tight deadline, hence some of the kind of glitches and that kind of stuff. But you know, I think he's done a great job. I'm sure if he had longer, we would see an even better game. Twat. I quite literally used to be able to play this game forever. Sadly, my skills aren't quite what they used to be. So anyway, that was the C64 Commando, and the final game we're going to look at is Commando on the Spectrum. Now again, my mate used to play this. I used to play mines with its awesome music, and he used to play this, and I just thought it looked garish with its yellow background and lackey detail. But you know what? Playing it now, I hate to say it, but it probably plays better than the C64 one. Would I rather play this one than the C64 one? I don't know. Yeah, some odd kind of colours there, but you know what? That was the Spectrum for you. But yeah, the actual the detail in the graphics, it feels more like the arcade one. It does look good. It really does. I think because the screen's less cluttered, it does feel easier to kind of play because you can see exactly what you're doing. The C64, because you've got a lot more detail in the ground and that kind of stuff, palm trees and what have you, it's more cluttered. There's more to kind of look at, and conversely, it does make. I mean, look at the number of soldiers running about there, and there's no slowdown at all. That is impressive. Right, come on, let's see if we can get past the first level. Right, anyway, I think that is enough of that. That is Commando on the Spectrum. So let's do a little roundup. Right, plus points. C64 has obviously got nice colourful graphics. It's got some really, well, at least the first screen has got some really nice kind of detailed background. The downside to it is the graphics are too big. It feels quite squashed, and the big ugly kind of squares around the bombs is utterly unforgivable. Spectrum one, yeah, it's kind of more monochrome. The sound isn't as good. It's not got the music of the C64 one. But as far as a sort of an arcade version, I have to say it plays so much better. It really does. It's, you know, they've made the graphics smaller, and it just works. It absolutely works better. So yep, I think in this instance, I think the Spectrum version of Bomb Jack is better than the C64 one. Right, next one, Frank Bruno's Boxing. That shameless rip-off of Super Punch-Out. Right, C64 one, it does look nice, like I said, it's got good sound, the graphics aren't bad, a bit pixely looking, but at least they're colour, though it does have that horrible kind of glitching you'll see at the bottom, which just kind of detracts a wee bit from it. The Spectrum one, I think it actually plays a bit better. It's got nicer kind of portrait pictures, which, you know, doesn't really add to the gameplay in any shape or form. Is it a good game in either system? I would have to struggle to say yes. If I was going to play it on one particular system, I think based on the colour alone, I think I'd probably go for the C64 one. So, yep, that's Frank Bruno's Boxing. Let's take a look at Airwolf. Music in the C64 is nice. I know it's a really kind of short loop of music, but I do, when I hear that, it does it brings back some nice memories, and that was the reason I used to load this game up. I used to actually load this up because I thought the music was good and it just looks so nice. It really does. It's got fantastic graphics, but the playability is just insane. You know, whatever Mr. Neil Bate was thinking about, having this ridiculous gravity built in just makes it makes it borderline unplayable. If they just tweaked that, then this could have been so much better. Spectrum 1 is a completely different game, totally different, doesn't look as nice, but I have to say it does play better. Now, I'm one of these people that will say if a game's unplayable then it's not a good game, and I have to be honest and say whilst the C64 one technically looks and sounds better, the Spectrum one is definitely the better version. Right, let's move on to Commando. Right, okay, last one, Commando. Right, now I've already outlined all the flaws. Yep, that wee guy definitely did change from a grey into Santa Claus, so there's a bug right away. Yep, you know, for all the C64 only has 3 levels, for all the fact that it glitches like nothing in Earth, it does play amazingly well. What little there is, it feels great, it really, really does, and you know, that soundtrack, it's worth it just for that soundtrack alone. Spectrum 1, yep, it's got a gaudy yellow background, the colours aren't nice, but it does have all the levels, I believe. I think it has all 8 levels, and it plays really, really well. It's probably easier to see because it's less cluttered. So if you really want the more authentic arcade, then I would probably say go with the Spectrum. But for me, the C64, there's not that much there, but what it does do is fantastic, and like I said, that soundtrack. So a quick roundup then, is this compilation value for money? On the C64, you're getting a fairly average Bomb Jack. You've got Airwolf, which is just unplayable, and Frank Bruno's Boxing, not the greatest. The Commando for me is the one highlight of this compilation. So, you know, from a C64 point of view, is it worth it? You know, if you already had maybe 1 or 2 of the games, I would probably say no. Certainly, if you already had Commando, I would say probably don't bother, save your cash. On the Spectrum, however, I think all 4 games are better. They are all decent games in their own right. So for whatever it was, I don't know, £8.95, £9.99, something like that. If you're a Spectrum owner, I think you're getting a fairly good deal. So anyway, listen, if there's a compilation you want to see me give this treatment to, please put your comments down below. And finally, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching.